Welcome to the Reheat on the Inside Texas Football YouTube channel powered by InsideTexas.com. I'm Joe Cook. That's RT Young. Thank you for watching. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Going to take care of a little bit of housekeeping before we get going forward. Subscribe to Inside Texas. Head to the first link in our description, or you can see right here on the screen a little QR code. Hit pause, scan that. That'll take you to the link to sign up for Inside Texas for just $1. The best Texas Longhorns intel, the best Texas Longhorns community, and of course, we'll also throw in a year of access to the Athletic as well. So not going to want to miss out on that. Again, first link in the description. We got a great event to tell you all about, the Red River Reunion at Texas Live this Friday with the Bear Bryant Award and the American Heart Association. We will be there on that main stage in Arlington, right by the Live Hotel, right across from the old Rangers ballpark, down the road from, and right by the new Rangers ballpark, down the road from AT&T Stadium. It'll be us, meaning Ian, Eric, and I. Right before us will be the Oklahoma Breakdown with Gabe Eichert and Teddy Lehman, two guys who are as tuned into the Sooners as anybody. And then at 1 p.m., Mac Brown, Barry Switzer get to talk a little bit about some of the great memories they have coaching in this game. Fun fact, Mac Brown, once an offensive coordinator for the Sooners, I think under Switzer, if I remember correctly. So lots of different advantages in this game for a great cause. Come join us. It is free to attend, and we look forward to seeing everybody there. RT, you and I were both in the swamp. You were a little bit closer to field level. I was up in the press box, and we saw kind of firsthand that there's a problem with the offensive line. It is as glaring as it can be at this point, just because of the fact that, Texas cannot really run the ball against offense or defensive fronts that are similarly talented. And, that does not portend well for the rest of the season. But that reminded you, and you wrote about this on Sunday, that kind of reminded you of something Sark said during his first year that may not really help right away, but it'll kind of instruct what we see from Texas going forward.
Yeah, so I was reminded of a comment that Steve Sarkisian made in the summer of 2022, going into that first year with Quinn Ewers as the quarterback, when Texas kind of surprised everybody by getting into the Pitt transfer Bolitnikoff Award winner Jordan Addison sweepstakes, when everyone thought it was a foregone conclusion that he was going to USC. Addison's obviously now a star for the Minnesota Vikings alongside Justin Jefferson, but it surprised everybody. And Texas, they took that portal recruitment down to the finish line. And I remember what Sark said was, I will never stop trying to add talented players to this roster. And at the time, it really looked like, man, does Texas really need this guy? They have Xavier Worthy, they have Jordan Whittington, they have Isaiah Nayor, who's obviously a big transfer from Wyoming. And they had added a couple other pieces, and then had some homegrown talent that I think people were still holding out hope for. Guys like Troy O'Meary, obviously had the 2-star running backs, and Jatavian Sanders. But it ended up the way that 2022 ended. You said, wow, Texas really stinks at wide receiver. Isaiah Nayor never even played. Jordan Whittington couldn't find the end zone, and Xavier Worthy had a sophomore slump, underlined by the fact that he had a hand injury. So at the end of the day, it was like, we actually needed Jordan Addison, and he would have dramatically helped young Quinn Ewers in that offense that really struggled to get the ball to its receivers. And, obviously people are like, why are you talking about Jordan Addison right now? And I think it was because I drew that conclusion to the offensive line and how Texas approached this offseason. And I don't know if it was hubris or pride or just resting on its laurels, but the fact that Texas didn't add anybody from the portal and the offensive line is now really showing. And I hope that Sark hasn't forgotten his own words from 3 years ago now, that said, hey, I'm never going to stop trying to add talented players to this roster, and always, come up with a spirit of competition when it comes to building this depth chart and developing this team. That just because people are highly touted recruits or familiar names, that doesn't give you a birthright to start on this team. And it doesn't give you the just red carpet to come out and eventually, once you've paid your dues for a couple of years, be able to block for Arch Manning. And what I saw on Saturday, I actually I didn't credit Arch with the loss. I thought Arch made a lot of plays. I thought it was a young Sam Ellinger like performance. I've made the comparison to Sam in Arch's first year as a starter much more than I expected to, back when everybody thought that Arch was going to be Johnny Unitas transfigured onto the football field here a couple months ago. And obviously those expectations were a little bit too high, but I think since that 10 straight incompletions against UTEP, we have seen Arch Manning get better, and he's even improved over the course of the game on Saturday. But man, with 15 yards rushing, no help from the running backs, another position group that I do feel like was was completely neglected in the portal, along with the offensive line. I just wish Sark had heeded his own advice, and it's going to be a lesson going forward. I think that I hope instructs him for the rest of the time that he's at Texas, which, still, I'm not one of those negative Nancy's here on a Monday, Joe. I still believe that's going to be a long time. And I'm still even optimistic that some things can be papered over to make this season a little bit more exciting than it looks right now.
Thing is, and you kind of mentioned this, like it didn't really get going in 2022. And, they add AD Mitchell, they get a few other guys in that portal haul in 2023 that help them to that Big 12 championship to get them into the college football playoff. So we didn't really see anything in action in 2022, or maybe in real time to get things going. Do you think there's anything in real time in 2025 that they can utilize?
Yeah, that they could do to paper over the offensive line and running back struggles. I mean, I think what you saw towards the end of the game the other day was a sign, and I'm hoping that Sark will break tendency a little bit and be willing to spread it out a little more. Dare I say, for the first time ever, does he go? Has he ever gone 10 personnel in his entire time at Texas?
Not in regular snaps, no. So
yeah. So spread it out. Let Arch Manning get the ball out quicker by going more tempo. It would obviously be a huge way of him breaking tendency. He's not the type of coach who typically does that. He sticks to his guns, and that pays off for him in a lot of respects. But hey, the Red River Shootout is always a good time to break tendency, in my opinion. We saw that work several times over the years, whether it was Mac Brown playing Jordan Shipley in the slot, or how they achieved the upset win over Oklahoma in 2018 with Sam Ellinger and Lil Jordan Humphrey and that cast of players. So I think those things could paper it over a little bit. And you got what Sark alluded to today in his press conference. They have to stop wasting first and second down. And that has been an issue of mine really for the whole Sark tenure. Last year, when you had a veteran quarterback in Quinn Ewers, I did feel like he and Matthew Golden and Gunnar Helm bailed Texas out on a lot of third and longs. But gosh, they always seem so willing to get into 3rd and 9+. And I think you got to start chipping away at that down and distance marker earlier on. And I think anytime you see someone have success like Florida did on Saturday against one of Pete Kwiatkowski's defenses, whether it was Texas Tech a couple years ago or in 2022, or U of H almost pulling a massive upset in 2023, it's because people get into really third and manageable situations against PK's defense. Because if you get into third and long situations with PK's defense, and especially now, it's over. But Sarkisian has got to learn that lesson, and they've got to start chipping away a little bit more. And whether it's through the short passing game or design QB runs, start getting into 3rd and 3, 3rd and 2, in some situations where you can start seeing maybe a little bit more Jarrett Gibson. They tried using the other day in that fullback dive 4th down conversion, but it was blown dead by a pre-snap penalty. So I think that will make a huge difference if they just start to improve on 1st and 2nd down. Goodness gracious.
One of the things you also wrote in the reheat, you call it the piping hot take, burn in the roof of your mouth, is going into the Red River Shootout with an identity crisis isn't comforting. But since 2022, Texas under Sark has responded well after a loss, and that's giving you reason for optimism, even when we are kind of looking around and seeing that it's not as, I don't want to say this game is ever a sure thing, but maybe not going up to Dallas with as much confidence as typically under Sarkisian.
No, definitely not. Obviously, you don't want to go into the Red River Shootout and that be the game where you have to figure out who you are. That has typically not worked well for either side in the past. But at the same time, the past couple years, I do feel like the team that's played really well in the Red River Shootout is the one that's backed into the corner, and that has to fight their way out of it. And I think all the great players that have played in this game from both sides of the rivalry, whether it be the UT Legends or the Oklahoma Sooner Legends, what they always say is this is the game that gets reduced to a street fight, and it doesn't matter the play scripts or the game plan. At the end of the day, it becomes a fight. And I think people are really discounting the fact that 3-2 start. I had to think of what our record was for a second. 3-2 record or not. This is still a team with championship level players and championship level pedigree, players that have won the Big 12 title, players that have won big games, players that have won playoff games and competed for conference titles. And they do have that advantage over Oklahoma. The thing that Oklahoma has working for it is they have confidence. They have a good interior defensive line. They want revenge over last year. And I think they could probably kick a wounded dog while it's down. But I don't think Texas is going to go out like that. And there has been no evidence over the course of the Steve Sarkisian tenure since that first season that the players are going to quit on him and that the players are going to quit on each other or the coaching staff. They always respond well after a loss. I think losing to Ohio State the last game of this year, the last game of last season, the first game of this year was really the only time you could technically count that they've lost back-to-back games since that losing streak in 2021. And that was obviously two separate seasons. So it's not even really worthwhile mentioning that. So obviously that's something that's in the back of my mind, but I am still thinking of that abysmal offensive performance and that head-scratching defensive performance from Gainesville on Saturday, and that's definitely playing into my doubt going into this weekend. And I think even today, the fact that we're still talking so much about Florida, I'm like, man, by this point, normally on Red River Week, even if Charlie Strong is the coach at Texas, my juices are flowing and I'm ready. And we're talking about Red River and our favorite games, and it's a lot of reminiscing, and we don't have really anything like that going on right now. And I think it is a sign that the Gators chomped Texas into crisis a little bit, and that's what I titled the reheat.
Hey everyone, I'm here to tell you about Brunt Workwear. And I know workwear has become fashionable, but there's also a function to it. You need to have the right stuff. And let me tell you, when it comes to having the right work boot, get the Marin. I love the Marin. I am not a work boot person, but I might be now with this. These are the most stylish, most comfortable. I've always been told you have to break these in, and it gets to be a little bit troublesome when you've got blisters on your feet. Not with the Marin from Brunt. This thing was comfortable right out of the box, ready to go, and I can't believe it looks as good as it does. Whether you need waterproof, safety toe, pull on, slip on, anything like that, they have everything you need for your workwear apparel desires. For a limited time, our listeners get $10 off at Brunt when you use code INSIDETX at checkout. So just go to bruntworkwear.com, use the code INSIDETX, and you're good to go. After you order, they'll ask where you heard about Brunt. Do us a favor and tell them it was from this show. And hey, when it comes to Brunt, you don't have to worry about choosing between comfort and durability. Trust me, it's got both. We'll keep on going, and we'll actually finish up a little bit with what you call the Sarkometer. And I love that. Grading Steve Sarkisian. And, normally this is kind of a shorter part of the reheat whenever you write it. But at this point, this is a look at, what Sark is kind of put himself into at this point. You mentioned the 2022 loss to Oklahoma State, and I think that's been mentioned a lot on Inside Texas as just trying to like, this is going to work. This is going to work. This is going to work. It doesn't. It doesn't. It doesn't. But they still keep trying it. And you're kind of asking in what you write about, and even that with the fact that Sark is adept at scheming guys open, and there were guys being schemed open. Sometimes it's just trying to scheme guys open the way that he always has wanted to in this ideal, instead of maybe scheming guys open in the way that he has to with what he's working with.
Yeah, I think there's a couple funny things going on with Sark. He always seems to call the offense based on the offense that he wants to have better than the team in the talent that he actually does have. And part of that paid off. He talks a lot about how he was tempted to just run an offense more similar to Tom Herman's in 2021. But when he got on the phone with Pete Carroll, he was like, man, if you do that, your team's never going to grow and the program's never going to grow. And he obviously stuck to his guns, and that probably resulted in 2021 being a lot worse from a record standpoint than he wanted it to. But it built a foundation. It weeded out the players who needed to go elsewhere. It proved a proof of concept for maybe the Mannings of the world, and getting talented wide receivers in the program after seeing what Xavier Worthy did. So sticking to his guns has worked in the past. But he has to remember, this is still a season that the Longhorns' goals are in front of them. As crazy as that sounds, they still have championship aspirations. So he does need to show a willingness to adapt and not just beat his head against the wall, wanting to do the things that he thinks should work. There's obviously a big element of coaching that is scheme driven, and that means you got to scheme your guys open and scheme your guys up. But there's also an element of coaching that says, even if this is schemed perfectly, like a double pass from Ryan Wingo to Jack Indries, like, are we actually going to hit this? And have my players actually shown the ability in practice to hit this over and over and over again? And that is what I question sometimes. Like, is this what the offense is actually best suited for based on the talent available, or are we just dying on the vine of a system? A couple years ago, I compared Sark. This was maybe in the darker days of 2022 after the Oklahoma State game, and maybe around the bad loss to Sonny Dykes and TCU, where I compared Sark to the Formula One race car driver who can win Grand Prix and go 220 miles per hour. But if you asked him to back your mom's 2003 Toyota Corolla out of the driveway, he couldn't do it. And so I think there's an element of that going on here still. And I really hope that he shows ability to adapt his personnel to what they're going to be good at running the rest of the season, because it's absolutely necessary at this point.
No Schadenfreude this week because, everybody's talking about James Franklin. And while we would like to look at that a little bit, Texas is in its own situation. Not saying that they're like for like, but it's hard to, point and laugh at other people when what's going on here is what's going on here, right?
Yeah, I don't ever want to hear James Franklin and Steve Sarkisian or Texas and Penn State compared again after this weekend. So hopefully that's the last time.
Yeah, I mean, if there's a top 10 win on Saturday for Texas, that'll be a lot different than what James Franklin has ever done up in State College. So we'll end on that. Thank you for watching this video. Make sure you like it. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. And of course, make sure you go to that first link in our description. Sign up for Inside Texas. Join for just $1. Get access to the best Texas Longhorns intel, best analysis. Join the best community ahead of the best work week of the year, in my opinion. Always a lot of fun. And if you sign up, you will get a full year of access to The Athletic. And again, we got some info on Inside Texas, should be pinned to the top right now. The Red River reunion at Texas Live will be there. The Oklahoma Breakdown will be there, and Mac Brown and Barry Switzer will also be there. Great event being put on by the Bear Bryant Award. Cannot wait to get there Friday, right around lunchtime. This is a free event. We'll be going on at noon, highlighting some of the great things that the Bear Bryant Award does, and then we'll get to listen to some great stories from Mac Brown and Barry Switzer. So hope to see everybody in Arlington. RT, thank you so much. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time on the Reheat on the Inside Texas Football YouTube channel powered by InsideTexas.com.